Shields are one of those builds that I always wanted to make work. The Captain America-like playstyle and the skill of aiming the shield throw to hit multiple targets is so satisfying, but it never felt strong enough to be a real build. It always had amazing clear with a huge AoE, but it lacked a single target to kill high health bosses. Finally, with new items and mechanics introduced with Lightbringer, shields are now able to dish out some real meaty single target. This build uses a core mechanic that I learned from a Japanese YouTuber, link in the description, where he discovered that the level 3 shield throw skill, which I like to call the shield blast, and the level 5 shield throw skill, which I like to call the shield dash, are timing attacks, which makes them able to trigger consume with the heavenly reversal ring. This is important because these two attacks are really nice utility, and in my opinion, these are the best designed timing attacks in terms of not interrupting the combat flow, but instead really enhancing it. So if by some chance a dev sees this, please keep this interaction in the game and even consider making other timing attacks better. For the shield blast, it has a giant AoE and you only have to trigger it after you cast the shield, which means you can run around to dodge or attack, and only after the shield is caught you have to trigger it. The shield dash, on the other hand, is super fast and has great mobility. It can be used as a gap closer from long range and an instant trigger in short range. Before I go into detail with my gear choices, I want to talk about why I chose Moebius first. The main reason is because her passive is now changed to shield throws deal void damage and inflict curse. What this allows me to do is not run a charm that makes my shield deal ailments, but instead I can run stuff like the Beetle Talisman. Another really nice thing is Moebius has really nice augment slots, so this is definitely a very good fit for this build. For the weapons for this build, it doesn't really matter that much. What you want to know is you cannot have any blessings in this build, and other than that, nothing really benefits you that much. So I opted to go for the Ancestor, which applies the Mark of Fragility whenever I hit an enemy with Sultan technique. And since I'm not using the Mark of Fragility charm, this is another way for me to apply Mark of Fragility. But I don't really use it really that much because my weapon technique doesn't charge back that fast. So you don't even have to use this. For the other weapon, I'm using Dragon Coil. This gives me shield charge whenever I perform a critical hit, but as you can see, my critical hit chance is really low, so this doesn't really have a great effect, but it just gives me something to do when my shield is still recharging. Now for the most important piece of the build, the Kaida Amulet. For each capped resistance, plus 25% shield charge speed and 26% shield damage. This is absolutely insane for this build and any build in general that uses shields. The 25% shield charge speed is per capped resistance. So as you can see, I have 6 capped resistance and that is 150 shield charge speed. And as you can see in my detail stats, my shield throw charge time is 11 seconds. And on top of that, it gives us shield damage per capped resistance. So that's another 150 shield damage on top. So this amulet is absolutely crazy for this build. For the charm, I'm using Beetle Talisman. This unleashes a shockwave whenever I consume an element, and the damage of the shockwave is 25% of the damage I consumed. This amulet is mainly for clear purposes, because when you're throwing a shield, you cannot hit, because you can only inflict the ailment with the shield throw, not the shield blast or the shield dash. It is hard to hit every single enemy with the shield throw, even with the arcing shield throw. So this talisman allows the few enemies that you inflicted with ailments, when they are consumed, the damage gets spread out to other enemies. And another interesting thing is, let's say you're fighting a boss with multiple enemies around them and you do an arcing shield throw and you consume it. Every single consume will proc the shockwave, and it will just shock on the boss and instantly kill it. For the rings, Heavenly Reversal is a must for this build because our Shield Blast and Shield Dash are considered timing attacks, so it allows us to consume ailments with timing attacks. For the other ring, I'm using another cursed ring, which gives me 24 overhealth whenever I consume 1000 damage. And since we are consuming millions of damage every time you consume, you're pretty much always at full overhealth. Very, very nice item for this build. For the Livestones and Banner, again, it doesn't really matter, but if you want, go for this. Element Power and Element Duration. Now let's look at the augments, starting with Vitality Augments. This augment gives us 100% of your void damage bonus, also increases your curse duration. And this is the main reason why we want to stack void damage all over our gear. Another really important augment is curse power while you have no blessings. And that is the reason why I say when choosing weapons, you cannot choose any weapon that gives you any blessings. For capping resistance for the Kaida, I'm using Primal Presence of Mind. You don't have to use the primal one, but if you are like me and you rolled void damage as secondaries on some vitality augments instead of the all resistance, you will need the primal one to cap it. And for the final vitality augment, I'm using Fortitude to give us some overhealth retention because we are not using Eye of the Dragon anymore, and instead using another overhealth ring that doesn't have overhealth retention on it. So this is very, very nice. For the spirit augments, I'm using Scourge, which gives shield charge whenever you defeat an enemy. This is my main source of gaining shield charge back outside of Kaida. The next spirit augment, I'm using Expanded Mind. Since spirit scales our base damage of the shield, this does add a little bit of damage to our build, but it really doesn't matter that much. You can use any spirit augment that has good secondaries. You're mainly looking for void damage and then element power. Same goes with this augment. It does give shield damage, but it really isn't that much. It's only 51%. And if you have one like mine, obviously you want to use it because it is basically a god roll for this build, void damage and L1 power. But if you don't have one, just go with whatever augment that has void damage on it, and you'll be fine. For the last spirit augment, I'm using Sleepless Eye. This also doesn't really do anything really. Most of the time, the main target you are hitting is the first enemy you hit, so you don't really get benefit from this that much. But yeah, it has good secondaries, so I'm using it. For the might augment, first of all, you don't want to have Blessing of Luck, for example, so you cannot use those augments. And focus doesn't really do anything in my build really because we have so low crit chance. But ideally, you want to have the new crit chance augment that gives you like 9% critical hit chance. This one right here, Iron Heart. It gives crit chance and minus rampage charge speed. Since we don't use any rampage, it doesn't really matter. And the crit chance will help with your dragon coil if you are using one. For the skills, you want to pick up all 5 levels of shield throw. 4 levels of shield attacks because the last level gives you whenever you double tap the block button, you can block enemy red attacks, but you can easily trigger it on accident, so I don't like to use it. But if you like the attack and you don't really feel like you trigger it too often, you can go ahead and use it. Level 5 is Shield Prime, so you can manually prime your shield to activate the charge shield throw, which is the highest single target damage you can do. And some crit chance to help with Dragon Coil. Thundering Slam 5 points always. 2 points into weapon technique because sometimes maybe your shield throw on timing attack fails and maybe you get interrupted. You still want to have a timing attack as your backup plan to consume the ailment you inflicted. 5 points into resistance to cap all your resists. If you can't cap it to 57%, don't spec into the last level 5 point and leave it at 52%. It should be easier to cap. But since I have 57% already, so I'm using it. 5 points to spirit for some more base damage for the shield. 5 points to ailments for loss of damage. And other points you can put whatever place you want. Another point to note is do not put points into weak points if you have the Ascension power. This Ascension power that gives you 20% chance to get Blessing of Power whenever you hit a weak point, or Blessing of Endurance whenever you hit a weak point. Because you will accidentally disable your augment that gives you 80% curse power.